You're not going to believe this, but just before she died, she looked at me and said, 'My name's not Margaret.'" That's what Thomas said when the nurse asked if his wife of 70 years had any final words. He wasn't joking. He wasn't confused. He was holding her hand in a quiet hospital room on a snowy Tuesday morning, staring into the fading eyes of the woman he had built an entire lifetime with. 4 children, 11 grandchildren, and 7 decades of memories, and hearing her tell him that the very first truth she'd ever given him was a lie. But he didn't yell. He didn't cry. He just leaned in gently and whispered, "What do you mean?" Her voice was a whisper, a rasp. "My name, it's not Margaret. It's Magdalena." He blinked. "I changed it when I left East Berlin." Thomas, already stunned, asked, "Why didn't you ever tell me?" Her eyes flickered with shame. "Because I didn't come here to fall in love. I came here with a mission." Now his stomach dropped. He felt the air shift in the room. "What kind of mission?" he asked slowly. She closed her eyes as tears rolled down her wrinkled cheeks. "My father worked for Soviet intelligence. I was raised in it, groomed for it. I wasn't a spy, not really. I was just a girl trained to carry things, letters, names, photographs, hidden inside the hems of dresses, including the one I wore on our wedding day." The silence between them stretched like fabric pulled too tight. Thomas swallowed hard, memories rushing back from decades ago. That dress, the way she insisted on bringing her own. Simple, modest. "I was supposed to deliver a message to a contact here," she said, "but I met you. You asked me to tea the first week. You brought me books the second. By the third, I couldn't go through with it." She coughed hard, then continued. "So I burned the message. The night before our wedding. And I've carried the lie ever since." She turned to him, eyes full of fear and pain. "Do you hate me?" But Thomas didn't speak, not at first. He just reached into his coat pocket and pulled out something wrapped in a faded napkin. He unfolded it slowly. Inside was a small, brittle piece of lace, discolored with time. A loose thread dangled at the corner. Her eyes widened in horror. "You found it?" He nodded. "The night before we were married, you were asleep. I was hanging your dress and I noticed the stitching was odd. I opened the seam. Found this. The ink was smeared by then. I didn't understand what it was. But I knew enough." She gasped, covering her mouth. "Why didn't you say anything?" He looked at her with that same quiet steadiness he always had. "Because I saw how you looked at me, how scared you were, how desperately you wanted a life, not a mission. And because I loved you more than I needed an explanation." The emotion in the room broke her. She sobbed softly, curling slightly into his shoulder. "All these years I wanted to tell you, but I didn't know how. And the longer it went, the harder it got." Thomas pressed his forehead to hers. "I didn't marry the name Margaret. I married the girl who laughed at my jokes and danced barefoot in the kitchen, the one who stitched my shirt on the night of my interview, who stayed up reading beside me for 70 years. That's who you are. That's who I've always loved." She smiled through tears. "I'm sorry. I'm not," he whispered, "because you came here to deliver a message. And somehow, you ended up delivering me a life." She passed peacefully that afternoon, holding his hand. No fear, no shame, only love, the kind that had outlasted wars, lies, borders, and even death. At the funeral, Thomas said very little. He didn't talk about the secret. He talked about the memories, the garden she grew with military precision, the way she hated soup, the way she'd hum when nervous. No one ever knew the truth until years later when he donated a trunk of personal belongings to a local war museum. Inside they found the lace, along with a handwritten note, "She lived 2 lives. I was lucky enough to share one of them." When the story was published by the museum, it went viral almost instantly. Not because it was scandalous, but because it was real. Because for once, a story about secrets didn't end with betrayal, it ended with forgiveness. The comments flooded in. Veterans, children of Cold War survivors, people who had been lied to, people who had lied, people who understood that the deepest kind of love isn't the one built on perfection. It's the one that survives the imperfection. The museum placed her lace fragment on display beside a photograph of their wedding day. Margaret smiling in her veil, Thomas beside her, arm gently wrapped around her back. The caption below read, "Magdalena and Thomas, proof that love is the only message that never gets lost." In his final years, Thomas lived quietly. He never remarried. Every morning, he walked to the park bench she used to love. He sat there with his tea and said out loud, "Good morning, Margaret." He never used her real name, not once, because in the end, what mattered wasn't where she came from, but who she chose to become. And she chose him, every single day. Before we end this story, let us know in the comment, where are you watching from? If this story touched you, subscribe to the channel and hit that like button and drop a karma in the comments below.